Whether it's heat waves in Canada, storms in Texas, or flash floods in Indonesia, no country is immune from extreme weather events fueled by climate change. But not everyone is equally to blame, and not everyone can afford the massive costs of cleaning up disasters like this, or just as importantly, shifting their economies away from these sorts of things and embracing more of these. Take Africa, for instance. As a whole, the continent is only responsible for around 3% of global greenhouse gases, yet it's among the most vulnerable to the knock-on effects of climate change. Take the cyclones in Mozambique or droughts in Ethiopia. Those types of extreme incidents can impact food production and increase the risk of malaria. Some argue that wealthy nations industrialized over the last 2 centuries precisely because they were able to burn fossil fuels like coal. Now the goal is to keep these fuel sources in the ground in an effort to stop temperatures from rising even more. But what if you need to tap those fossil fuels to cheaply industrialize your developing country? While Joe Biden's doubling of the US climate pledge to $11.4 billion is a step in the right direction, a global problem needs a global response. And that's what the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change wants to solve. How to get rich countries to agree to a plan to help poor countries pay for solutions. Over a decade ago, wealthy countries promised that by 2020, they would help to raise $100 billion a year for projects to combat climate change in poor countries. But support was lackluster even before the pandemic hit. And once that took hold, governments worldwide shifted their focus to emergency response packages to cope with the shock of the outbreak. Another challenging element is that most of the money raised so far has gone to green technologies like wind turbines and solar panels meant to mitigate climate change. But fewer funds have gone to resilience measures like flood barriers needed to help countries adapt to extreme weather. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has said adaptation and mitigation money should be split 50-50. Developing countries have noticed the failure of rich countries to deliver on their pledge, and the inequality of the coronavirus vaccine rollout has heightened tensions. Without the promised funding, they say they are unable to announce tougher carbon-cutting goals, which are desperately needed to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Even if the $100 billion goal is met, the reality is that trillions, not just billions, will be needed to pay for the green transition.